Ciao a tutti.
Ciao Giulia.
Ciao.
Hi.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Perfetto, puntualissimi. On time. Everybody on time.
Bravi, bravi.
So I don't want to steal time. So as yesterday, I will do just a short introduction. Then Deborah will do as role as a moderator, and she will be perfect. Yesterday was amazing. We had a good time. So now we also know how it worked, this event, which is totally new to us. So it will be fun. So for those who doesn't know me, I'm Giulia Paira from Consorzio Vini del Piemonte. Actually, the first thing I want to say is thank you to both producer and both opinion leader to join us, because it is really a great occasion now that we cannot travel to meet and to speak on a specific topics and joining together different producers from different areas of Piemonte today. Yesterday we're all from Barolo, but now we have from different areas of Piemonte. So we will travel a bit across the region as well. Just a few words on who we are for those, again, who don't know us. We are a private consortium. This is a consortium that is not a consortium of tutela, so it's made by producer for producer. So we are 240 producer. Our aim is to promote Piemonte wines. So we are focused on promotion, helping the wine producer to join new markets, so meet importers, and is in this case to help them to strengthen their position in the market. So in this moment, particularly the role of events like that, and of course the role that you have as journalist, as influencer, as opinion leader, is crucial, because it draws attention back on Piemonte wines. Actually, this moment, this pandemic moment, has been, of course, difficult for all producers, particularly for some kind of appellation more than others. But in any case, Piemonte didn't lose a lot in terms of quantity, thanks to GDO that keep on working during these days. But the real problem is that we produce fine wines. So what we don't have to lose is the position that we have gained during the time. And speaking with you today is really important to do that, keep on doing that. Yesterday I talked about how Nebbiolo is great in translating the different terroirs that we have in the Barolo region. And today I have to say that we have a region that has more than 80% of DOC and DOCG wine. So not only Nebbiolo is important for us, all other appellation and all other grapes, and we have so many indigenous grapes. So today you will go to Colli Tortonesi in Monferrato to taste some Timorasso, and you will discover there with Elisa also Gavi, so Cortese, which you, of course, you know. And with Nascetta as well, we will go back to understanding that we have also great white wines. And then other appellations that are great will be shown today. Beatrice will have her Grignolino and Fresa. We talk about that in Monferrato in the blend. We will have some new characters of Barolo. Here Gianluca with the Segni di Langa, and Daniele Gala with Réva, Castello di Perno with Marco Buttignol. And of course, we will have Alto Piemonte with Alessio Travaglini, Gattinara, which is one of the great appellations of Nebbiolo over there. You will feel the differences. So for me, it's finished. I just want to thank you to Miss Karen McNeil, because she provided the glasses to all opinion leaders with our new line of glasses, Flavor First. This is a great chance for them to taste with your wines with the same parameter, with the same glasses. So thank you again, and of course thank you to Deborah for making this thing possible. So I'm done.
We couldn't have better organization and more enthusiasm and positive energy to do this project and do this work together. Welcome everyone, it's so exciting. We're finally here together. I have been really busy giving Karen's glasses a workout this morning and tasting all the wines, and I hope that you've been able to taste this morning. I love to taste early in the morning. We are not going to stand on ceremony. This is a discussion, And I've already advised our opinion leaders that the floor will be open to them first. So my role as moderator is to keep the discussion going. And of course, I have a few questions in my back pocket, but I know we have some eager tasters this morning who have questions for you. So I'm going to open the floor to our opinion leaders, and don't worry about interrupting. We'll get to your question if you talk over someone. So do we have a question?
Can I start with a question for Elisa?
Please.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Hi.
Susan, thank you for your email. It was very nice to correspond with you before this, and thank you for bringing your wines. Thank you everybody for your wonderful wines. I just we were just talking about the Timorasso, and it was really so wonderful to see that, you know, you're known as the queen of Timorasso, and how much that variety means to you. And I just want to know, like, you know, what is it about that particular area for the land and the site that lends itself well, particularly to Timorasso, and whether there was other types of grapes planted there before, or are they already there?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Elisa from La Colombera. We are in Colli Tortonesi area in the southeast of Piedmont, and in past, in Colli Tortonesi, many years ago, there were more vineyards, but our vineyards, 2,000 hectares of vineyard, more vineyard, but in Colli Tortonesi is not and is historical area, but a new area for great wine, for bottling the wine. In past, grape merchant and wine industry bought the wine here and bottling his wine. Now, 20 years ago, and now, no more producer change this terroir. My father and I, in 1997, planted the first time Timorasso and changed all in our winery. My grandfather arrived here from Montemarcino, 15 kilometers near here. And this is an hills, La Colombera is an hills, and it's a farm. And with time, my grandfather planted the vineyards. My father starts the winemaking and sell the bulk wine to private customer. And 20 years ago, okay, we changed, we decide to believe in our grape, to believe in our terroir. And we start a big work, and we start with the Timorasso. Timorasso is a local grape. We are a land of border. We are a spur of Piedmont in the southeast. We are near Lombardia. We are near Liguria. It's a different culture, and we are near Milano. We are not near Torino. Langa is near Torino. No, it's very different. And in our terroir, the climate is different to Langa. And in this area, we are more warm. And Timorasso is a local grape. Timorasso was born in this area. We have Barbera, Cortese, Freisa, more grape, but only Timorasso is our grape, identify our terroir. The destiny of Colli Tortonesi is changed because a group of producer, okay, Timorasso is very good wine. The father of Timorasso is Walter Massa. I'm only the queen. and Walter Massa take care of the Timorasso, change our destiny, the destiny of this area, because, okay, Timorasso is great grape, great wine. And my father and I believe in this, trust in this. And okay, we planted Timorasso. And when an area find his personality, his grape, his local grape change a lot. Today, more famous producer from Langhe arrive here, buy land and plant Timorasso. It's fantastic. It's a sign of respect of this area, because in Tortona we have Timorasso. Timorasso is Derthona. In Barolo we have Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is Barolo, and it's the terroir, it's the territory, and we are Timorasso. We are, our characteristic is this grape, this terroir, and more people say, because why you don't plant Nebbiolo? Okay, but in this we have clay soil, we have Tortoniano soil. Tortoniano soil starts in Tortona and arrives in Langa. We have the same soil, but the climate, the microclimate is very, very different. And Timorasso is a very good grape, and become a great white wine, strong, very good for aging, and is a new white wine for the Piedmont, a new challenge for the Piedmont.
Great, thank you so much,
Welcome.
Elisa. I think it would be great to segue me to maybe to talking about Nascetta, since we've just talked about the white grape Timorasso. We could segue to Nascetta from Castello di Perno, and we have Marco Butigno with us this morning. Hi, Marco.
Sei sul muto.
Oh, he's muted.
You're unmuted.
Sorry, yes. Sorry.
No. Hello.
Buongiorno a tutti. So the main difference, I think, between the Nascetta and the Timorasso is really about the area, as Elisa told before me, because in the Langhe and Barolo area in particular are famous for other kind of grape, as you know. So the Nebbiolo is really the focus and the main things that we have in the Barolo area. But also at the beginning of 2000, more or less, a producer from the area that named Elvio Conio has rediscovered this grape, having some plants of this kind of different kind of grape that no one knew what kind of grape was. So they starting a project with the University of Turin and then rediscover another kind of grape. So what is particularly interesting is that Nascetta is a completely different kind of character from the other white grapes that we have and usually use here in the Langhe. So it's a little bit more fruity and creamy in mouth, so you have much more structure. What the idea of Castello di Perno about the Nascetta is something a little bit different another time, because we decided to plant the grape in a higher part of the Langhe. So the vineyards are in Serravalle Langhe, so one of the highest villages in the Langhe area. We're talking about 700 meters above the sea level, more or less. And the idea is if we try to planting the grape in the higher part, probably we can avoid a little bit the climate changing first. And second things is have a little bit much more of acidity in the wine, that otherwise you risk with the Nascetta to have a wine a little bit too much bold and flat. So working in altitude help you to find this kind of finesse and elegance in the wine. So yes,
Nascetta has the ability to age, so I read.
Yes, a little bit, as the Timorasso, for example, are two kind of grape that has the opportunity to age a little bit. Yes. So at the moment we don't have this historical kind of vintage, if you want, because normally, and we are very few producers to make it. So yes and no. We have the idea that it can age well. At the same time, we have to make a different kind of selection and test to see. But in general, yes, it ages very well. But this is just because of his structure, you know, because when you have high acidity and this kind of full month, etc., it's easy to have a wine that you can age for longer.
Right. Great. Thanks so much,
Thank
Marco.
you.
You know, I want to make sure we cover all our white wines. So since we're kind of working from white to red, so we're going to go back to Elisa to talk about the Cortese, the Bricco, Bartolomeo.
Bartolomeo, perfecto, yes.
Okay.
And
So this wine is showing so well this morning, and I hope other tasters agree and want to comment on that, but I find it some orange zest, very expressive Cortese. I'm tasting the wine at a very cool room temperature, so not cold, so I can really understand the flavors.
oh, thank you. And I love balance and elegance wine. And you know, Deborah, Cortese means in Italiano kind people. And this grape is very, very kind. And now Timorasso and Cortese is ripe in the middle of September. And Timorasso grape and Cortese grape is very different. When Timorasso is ripe, you run in the vineyard for the harvest because it's very sensitive to botrytis and is a big problem for the Timorasso. Cortese grape, when it's ripe and the vineyard is gold, you see the grape perfect. And we are lucky, this grape is perfect for 1 week, and we ran to for the harvest for Timorasso, and okay, the Cortese wait a moment, but it's very good grape. It's more easy respect of Timorasso in the vineyard in all work, and the winemaking for this Cortese is a little Timorasso because we start 10 years ago the winemaking similar to Timorasso, but is 9 months surely in batonnage. The Timorasso take 9 months surely in batonnage, and is more important for our Cortese is singular vineyard. The name is Bricco Bartolomeo, and the batonnage, the surly is important because the sapidity of our terroir, you find this sapidity in all our white wine. You find the soil, you find our terroir. Yes.
Fantastic.
And the Cortese is the history in Piedmont because the Gavi, the diocese is Cortese great.
It's there for a reason, right? Well, now the floor, pardon, is open to our producers to lob a question back over the net to our opinion leaders. So producers, does anyone have a question for our opinion leaders? Doesn't have to be in the thread we're discussing as we work our way through the wines, but we welcome.
May I ask if you have been already in contact with the wines of my region? I'm Beatrice Gaudio from Bricco Mondalino and from the area of Monferrato, but Monferrato Casalese, so northeast of Monferrato, under the province of Alessandria. So I'm more north than the Timorasso area of La Colombera, and we are specializing in Grignolino and Barbera. And my question is about Grignolino and how do you see the Grignolino wine in an area like this one, where more and more drinkable wine with also more accepted tannins and acidity is is common now, where with also well-educated consumers.
Okay, opinion leaders, dive in.
Can I give a shot? I'm personally I adore Grignolino, always have, and I'm thrilled to see it coming out a little bit more. Glad we're on the same boat, Alder. I'm honored. I think it's going to be a challenge just based on the name and the labels to present it in the U.S. market. It's not an impossible challenge. You can do it, but it needs promotion. It needs to get to be known. I think it's up until now, Grignolino has been what I'll call a sommelier's wine. It's a wine that needs to be hand sold. It needs to be explained. But I believe that once it gets in the mouth of the consumer, if it's presented as even a springtime, summertime red, can take a little slight chill to it, just serve it a little bit colder than we tend to do with our red wines here in the States. I think it's got tremendous potential. I think that it's got more pairing abilities. And again, the problem is communicating that message out to the American consumer. I think the same thing goes for Freisa. Not quite as much for Barbera, but I think that Freisa and Grignolino are unfortunately not on the American consumer's radar and should be. And the question is, how can we help you do that?
Well, hopefully by tasting and talking and posting.
Well, that's
and
why we're here, right?
Oh, yeah. A celebration of Grignolino. It sounds good to me. I'm really charmed by the color of this wine, the light delicacy of the anthocyanins, and the beautiful kind of spicy, sapid, herbal quality of this wine. It makes me salivate and want lunch. We're hours from lunch. Thank you so much, Lars and Beatrice. We're going to come back around to your wines, but our opinion leader, Liz Tosh, has a question, and I'm going to let her pose it. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. And thank you so much for being with us today and sending all the delicious wines. I actually received all mine here in California and have been enjoying tasting them. My question has to do, just for anybody who wants to answer, or several of you, about farming methods that you are currently using in your vineyards, and why you are using the ones that you are. For example, are you doing organic? Are you doing sustainable? Are you doing biodynamic or regenerative is another new farming term where we talk a lot about, or starting to talk more about in the US. So just a little bit more about the farming methods in the vineyards.
If anybody starts, I take the word. Okay, so we are as a family winery and viticulturist since 5 generations, working a lot in the vineyards. Our main work, and I mean really of all of our family, is direct in the vineyards. And so me, my mom, and also my father before, and just a few other people are working directly in the vineyard. We are not so organic or biodynamic certified, but I can say we are sustainable. We try to think what's the best for our soil, and we don't want to use chemicals in order not to alterate the natural fauna and so the balance of the soil. So we actually work as our grandparents were doing, so mainly manually. Only the spraying and also the middle, the management of the rows in the middle are by tractor, but all of the canopy management and also the cutting the grass or hoeing is doing by hand, because with our clay calcareous soil, it's very easy to make very thick the soil and not allow the roots to go very deep in the soil. So we need to be very careful with the tractors, and also we needed to preserve our natural grass. For example, in my vineyards, we have naturally some mint and wild pea plants, peas plants, and we normally do all of the trimming by hand, and we try, especially because we have as also other regions in all of the world, that big problems with ESCA, for example. So we try to do also all of the pruning and the cuts, of the trimming, and during the pruning, everything very controlled and disinfected with some copper, or anyway, we try to be very precise and careful with all of the vineyard management. And yeah,
I can participate to replying this question. Actually, I'm Alessia from Travaglini. I'm in the northern part of Piedmont, so in a wine region called Gattinara. We made Gattinara DOCG, of course, and I'm the 5th generation of the family. I would like to say that we are not officially considered and certificate as biodynamics or biology, but of course, as Beatrice said, we try to be as much as possible attempt to what we do in the vineyards with maximum respect of the vines, because my great grandfather used to say that the wine is produced in the vineyards and not in the cellar. This is the most important things to know, and this is what my previous generation and my past generation transmitted to me, and what I will do to the next generation. I think that sometimes in my opinion, the terms biodynamic or biological is a little bit too much used, and sometimes could be like a trend. I think that the serious winery that had a very long tradition always worked with a very sustainable way, but even if it's not certificate.
Thank you, Alessia. I appreciate that. I think
if I can say something about the experience from Réva. My name is Daniele Gaia. I am the brand manager of Réva. We are located in Monforte d'Alba, so Barolo area. Réva decided to move to the organic management from the beginning of its history, and we are certificate organic from a couple of years. And we really trust in this kind of management. It's a kind of management that we made for many reasons, not only for a reason of respect of the environment, that of course is the first thing to take a decision like this, but also because we really trust that now with the climate that we have in this moment in our region, that is of course different from the climate we had 20, 30 years ago, and also with the knowledge we have on our vineyards, on our plant, is much more easier to work in this way. And in this way, we really see that the influence of this kind of management on the vineyards is important to arrive at the kind of grapes we want. So it's not only to have the green leaves on the label, but it's really because we feel that there's more energy, a different kind of energy in the plant, and more characterization, more important characteristic on the grapes. We are trying to planting legumes in the row to have a more organic substance in the soil. We are trying different kind of pruning. So step by step, every year we are searching to better optimize the style of pruning to respect better the green part of the plant. And at the same time, we are reducing year by year always more the quantity of cutter as possible during the year, switching to arrive every year at the best result as possible. Of course, working in this way, you need to interpret better the characteristic of the vintage. So your manual work on the vineyards is absolutely much more important, and the management you make starting from the pruning, arriving to the harvest, have to be really with the glow. Okay, so you really need to know very, very well every expression of your soil and of your vineyards. But I really trust that much more than 10 or 20 years ago, in this moment is the time to try to move in this way, because the climate and the knowledge we have helps to work in this way. Oh, sorry Gianluca, ti ho preso.
Ciao Daniele.
Ciao.
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 No, non nessun problema. C'è spazio da tutti.
Sorry.
Hey, Gianluca.
Ciao a tutti. Ciao, I'm Gianluca Colombo. So I'm probably one of the youngest winery that is participating today. So in my case, the question regarding the vineyard management has a different answer. I'm still, and I used to be a consultant winemaker, and then open up a winery just in 11 as a hobby, we can say, but now is my main job. And during the last 10 years, I made myself many questions regarding the sustainability. And for sure, I play organic. I'm certified since 19, but you will never see my label with the leaf, the organic leaf or something like that. So this is not the key point. The key point is my life and is what I'm going to leave to my sons. I have 2 children. And in the last 5 years, I started making myself many questions and started reading many books. And I can say that since the beginning of last year, I started the biodynamic conversion. And honestly, I received much more answer than the question I made. I started to understand that everybody talk about the wine, but of the territory, of the terroir, of the denomination. But the key point is always the man. The center of a project, of a farming project, is always the man. Because without the man, you can have the best terroir in the world, you will never make a good wine. Without the person, the people, the project, you can do anything, even if you're in the highest vocation place in the world. So the man is very important, and even the project. So in my case, my winery is moving to be not longer a winery, but a farm. In fact, we are going to plant we are going to prepare our farm in order of producing what we need in the 80% of our needs. We have the chicken, we are going to make our own pasta with our flour. We are going to produce our fruits with our fruit trees. We have 10 times the attention in our garden than in the last 20 years, probably. But the key point is that working in this way, it makes you as well thinking in another way. So when I see some problem in my vineyard, I'm not question myself, which is the active principles to use in order to solve the problem, but is what's wrong, what is not balanced in my crop. So it's another point of view that gives you many answers. So for example, in every plot I manage, I have different kind of herbs that are growing, different kind of grass. And each grass tells you many things regarding the health of your soil. So I think that I don't play the biodynamic in order to be a natural wine or an hipster producer. So I don't need it too. My wines have a classic label. I don't care about it, but I can tell you that I have my own analysis lab where I check wines, and in the vineyards managed in biodynamic, we can see a big difference regarding the answer on the stress. For example, we miss rain in some vintages. The biodynamic vineyards usually have a better answer to the stress than other vineyards. You don't spray any chemical, so you can go with your children in the vineyards quite happy without any problem. But the approach is different. Is checking even, first of all, starting with the soil and then going to the vines or every other crop, because it's something that you can play with all the crop in the world. And the results in the grapes usually are much better, because in the last years with the global warming, I talk about Nebbiolo, but it works with a lot of grape varieties, probably almost all. The ripeness in the grape variety is never balanced. So for example, we have a lot of sugar, but we lack in acidity. The tannins are not yet ripe, but we have to harvest because we have 15 of alcohol. And the aromatic compounds are not ripe or overripe sometimes. Well, playing biodynamic, I can see an harmonization of the ripeness of the grapes. So you can have probably, and I see that it works, you have ripe grapes with less alcohol. So you keep the acidity, you have the tannin structure riper than in other place. So it works.
Great, Gianluca, thank you so much. What a really wonderful snapshot of your philosophy of wine growing. Fred Swan, one of our panelists, had to bow out. But Fred had a question. Before we move on to talking about the bigger red wines, Fred did have a question about the Grignolino. And I don't want to skip that, and hopefully he'll watch the recording. But he asked about growing conditions for the Grignolino. And then after this, we'll move on to the Barolo, okay?
Okay. So growing condition of Grignolino, let's start talking about the variety and its phenology and how the bunch is. So the Grignolino is a variety that is starts grow during normally April and has an average length of its phenological development. So it's not so long as Nebbiolo, but it's not so early as other varieties like, for example, Chardonnay. Normally, it's a variety that has to be on very on the top of the hills in a windy spots with a good exposure. But also during the last 10 years, it has suffered a lot of the climate change and of the heating, the more and more warming changes. So we need to also change a little bit our view of managing the canopy mainly because so the bunch of Grignolino has very little berries, but very compact altogether. And the skin is not so thick as other varieties. Actually, it has a very thin skin. Within this compact shape makes it very easy to rot. So the botrytis is very happy normally when meets Grignolino in a humid condition and with too many grapes. That's also a reason why we normally, so we have a DOC disciplinaire, so regulation, very strict about the yield. We cannot make more than 7.5 tons per hectare of production of Grignolino. And also the yield from grape to wine is really low, but this is not due of about so in order to have more quality, it's just because every single berry of Grignolino is very full of seeds. Yeah. And Grignole, yeah, 3, but sometimes even 4. Sometimes we have 4, yes. It's one of the grapes with the more seeds in Italy. Yeah. So this makes it, so every berry has a huge part busy with the seeds. So we make normally 60% of wine from the grape. So it's a yield that is even lower than Barolo, if you see. And
so a picture of love is what you're telling me, Beatrice.
And it's a variety that so needs to be aerated, but also to be covered by the leaves. We haven't removed the leaves anymore since 5 years from the canopy at so the first leaves, but we just leave the lateral shoots till the grape, till the bunch. And we leave a very few amount of grapes in order not to have too much of humidity and to have a more aerated microclimate. And also we are starting to move the exposure of the Grignolino from south to north because the climate change is really felt from this variety. It stops completely ripening during summer when it's too hot, because it's a pessimistic physiological strategy. I don't know if you know about these strategies of the vines, but compared to Barbera goes on and on ripening, and Grignolino, when it's too hot and finds no more water, stops ripening. So it's quite difficult then to have a good Grignolino. And so when normally we have a soil that is very white. I have some samples next to me. So this is the clay that we have on the top when it's dry, and this is the stone just below, very white. And because of this soil, we are lucky because even if it's very hot, we don't have so much heat, and the underground, the soil remains very smooth and humid. So that's what makes the Grignolino also suitable to our region, even if we have very hot summers sometimes. And also that helps us to have anyway, also in North exposure, good ripenings for this variety. The important thing is to have white soils or seashells in the so fossils that can release calcaire, so calcium in the soil, and then so be anyway on the top of the hills.
Great, thank you so much, Beatrice. I'm sure Fred got a very good response to his question there. And I'm moderating the questions here, and I know we have one from Lars. Oh, so the soil samples are so appreciated. We love seeing the calcaire. It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So we do have some of the bigger red wines to talk about. So I would like to segue our discussion to the Barolo, to the Nebbiolo-based wines. And but we have one quick question regarding the use of Freisa in the Barbera by Gaudio. And that question, we've talked a little bit about Freisa before we joined you, before you joined us. So we know that it's but we're not quite sure what it's bringing to the Barbera. So if you could address that briefly, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. So it's traditional to have Freisa in the DOCG Barbera Monferrato Superiore. So it's actually the only grape variety that can add it to this DOCG of Barbera in our region.
Grapes, it's the only one.
Yes, compared to Barbera d'Asti that can have up to 15% of also some international. Barbera Monferrato Superiore DOCG can have just Barbera and a little bit of Freisa. That's all. But why we decide not to use just 100% of Barbera, but this about 10% for our Barbera Monferrato Superiore of Freisa in the blend. So Freisa, it's a relative of Nebbiolo as variety, genetically is very close, and has a very high quantity of tannins, something that Barbera has not naturally. And our winery has a style that wants to, is not really, so we're not so keen to use too much oak, and also we try to show our wines as they are from the vineyard. We are, as I said before, we are investing all of our energy in the vineyards, and then in the cellar we try to have the right response to the soil, so to represent the soil and the grapes, the grape variety, in order to make understand to the people that are new to most of our varieties what is really Grignolino, what is really Barbera. And the Freisa in the Barbera Monferrato Superiore, in our Barbera Monferrato Superiore, allows us not to use so much oak, because the Barbera is normally aged in oak in order to give to this wine the chance to age better and to smooth itself, to round its acidity.
Yeah, for the tannins to work out, yeah.
Exactly. We don't give too many tannins from the barrels, because we use 2 years 3 years old barrels, and we use the Freisa in order to give the tannins, and we do just 6 months of total aging of the wine in barrel.
Right. So you shorten your time, aging time, and shorten your time to market for the wine with the Freisa.
Yes, we can speed up the aging, and we can have so natural tannins from grape and not from the oak. So we preserve the authenticity of the wine like that.
Great, thank you, Beatrice. We really get that. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. So now we have only one MGA wine in this tasting. And we really must talk about it because we spent the entire time yesterday morning talking about MGA. So let's turn our attention to Castello di Perno and to the Castelletto wine, the Barolo. And you know, we looked very carefully at Castelletto in terms of the maps of Massignetti, and we've, you know, done some work there. But we would like to hear firsthand about the specific soil and the expression markers, the markers typical of Castelletto, Daniele.
Should be me, not Daniele.
Oh, Marco. Oh,
no,
sorry.
no, don't worry, no problem at all.
I was looking at Daniele's face.
But I'm more than sure that Daniele could say something more than what I can say about that.
I really would like to have a piece of vineyard in Castelletto, but we'll see.
Okay, so first of all, we are in the village of Monforte. So Castelletto is part of slopes that looking Serralunga normally. So this is Castelletto, yes.
Very modern, very modern.
You know, Castello di Perno is a brand new winery, so it's tried to be as much modern as possible. You know, we try to do the wine in the most classical way as possible, but with a touch of modern in terms of label and communication, etc. So yes. About Castelletto, as I told, the Castelletto is in Monforte d'Alba and is just facing of the very famous Vigna Rionda in Serralunga. So you have just to imagine that Serralunga coming in slopes down through the valley, and then on the other side of the hill you coming up to Monforte and Castiglione Falletto, and there is Castelletto. So it is a pretty big MGA, Castelletto.
Yeah, bigger.
And as big MGA, you can imagine there are lots of difference between a part and another. So, for example, what is very particular of our part of Castelletto, imagine that we are in the southeast part of Castelletto, starting from there. Then you can divide it, our vineyard in two parts. So in the lower parts, you have wine a little bit much more fruity and light. And in the higher part, there is much more clay and calcareous kind of soil. So the wine is much more deep and with the higher acidity. So it's where we find the bolder part of our wine. Mm-hmm. So at the end of this, we're making a blend that it could change year after year, just to have the kind of balance that we're looking for in the wine. But another time, yes, Castelletto is a kind of typical MGA from that particular part. So it's much more closer to the Serralunga style of the wine than to the Monforte, at the other side of Monforte style of the wine. So we are, but the other important things to remember always is just that is one of the bigger. So there is really a big difference between producer and producer to the style of making, and especially where you are in Castelletto. But this is a things that you surely know, because if you imagine about Bussia, for example, is another huge. is another perfect example of how many different kind of expression you can find from the same MGA.
So we're not going to generalize about Castelletto being homogeneous. It's not.
Yeah, that's it. No, because another thing is Castelletto, the slopes of Castelletto is pretty steep. So there is really a big difference between the lower part and the higher part. There's something like 200 meters of difference in terms of altitude.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much for those insights. And we just love to hear the specifics, and just having a way to understand Castelletto stylistically is helpful because there's so much variation. And I'm going, since I don't see any questions in the queue, I'm going to take the lead here and ask Alessia to please comment. Coste di Sesia. I am so curious about Coste di Sesia for Nebbiolo because I don't really have a good picture of it. And Lesia, would you help us with that and shed some light on this area for Nebbiolo?
Of course, yes, it's my pleasure. Actually, it's always nice to hear about the South Piedmont tradition about the Nebbiolo because they are important, they are big, there is a very important extension. Gattinara is a completely different style of the wine, a completely different terroir, microclimate, everything is completely different. So that's why you can try a different shades of Nebbiolo. Actually, I always like to call this wine, that is the Coste della Sesia, the baby Gattinara. Actually, as for example, sometimes happen in South Piedmont that you have the most important appellation that should be Barolo or Barolo DOCG. We have Gattinara, that is the same actually level, we can say. And then there is the second appellation, that is of course less restrictive with a shorter period of refining, that is in Gattinara, is called Coste della Sesia. I love call this wine baby Gattinara because actually we decided to produce this wine from younger vineyards. Actually, we normally produce Gattinara from vineyards who are from 12, 15 years old and older. This because since we have a very important rocky soil and maybe a little layer of earth and soil, all the rest is rocky. Sometimes the rocks appears and arise from the soil. So try to imagine how difficult it is for the roots to go very deeply. So that's why in the first year, so from 4 or 5 years when the vines start to produce, and the roots are a little bit on the surface and not very deep on the soil, we prefer produce this fresher expression of Nebbiolo. This because, of course, the body, the structure is a little bit less, and also the fruity and the vitality of the vines, it's of course higher than an older vine. So that's why this fresher and young perfumes and the light structure of this wine, we prefer to collect in the Nebbiolo Coste della Sesia. So when the vines are ready and a little bit older to give structure, potential, and body, we start to produce Gattinara.
I can tell you, I think this wine, if I have to introduce someone to Nebbiolo, I pick this wine because it is just strawberries just leaping out of the glass. You feel the youth of the vines in the glass, and that is a transmission of terroir and of great variety that is so charming. It would bring someone to Nebbiolo for their life. You know, it's just the perfect door to enter to Nebbiolo.
Thank you.
I see that our wonderful new MW, Susan Lynn. Congratulations, Susan Lynn, on winning the golden ring, grasping the golden ring of the Master of Wine. Susan has a question. I know our time is starting to wind down, so we'll address Susan's question, and then we'll leave the floor open for any final comments. Susan, would you please pose your question?
Thank you. This is a question for Marco. The Castelletto, the Barolo you were just talking about, it has a really wonderfully deep purple color, which was so interesting for me to see because usually for Barolo, I'm expecting something a little bit more, a little bit lighter, a little bit more orange hued perhaps. And I was just wondering whether, you know, what your extraction process is for your Castelletto, because I saw on your text sheet that you have a temperature controlled, you know, post-fermentation maceration for about 35 days. I'm wondering if it's through that temperature control, or are you also doing a pre-fermentation soak on the skins or some other type of technique? I would love to hear about this. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're doing in the cellar to the production of our Barolo is, as you've seen, is the long maceration. So the most part of the color that you can see in the wine is due to the maturation that we're doing. So it's this kind of process that permits to have this kind of color. The other things that it's important to remember, it's just that the Barolo that you have tasted in this moment is 2016, so it's young wines. So the typical orange color that you expect from Barolo and from a Nebbiolo is something that also arrived with the aging. So this is another thing important. But yes, I would like to say that mainly is made by the maturation that we made, and then always it's important. What is important to remember is always that the color of the wines coming from the grape that you have in the vineyard. So another time, the way you're working in the vineyard influence very much the wine that you can find at the bottle. So yes, but in terms of how we work on this wine, we make a very long maturation. We control the temperature. We do the regular, I would say, pump up of the wine on the skins, and then at the end you can find this kind of beautiful color.
Great, thank you so much, Marco.
Thank you.
Great. I hope Susan, your question was answered, Susan. So we are coming back around to one of Laura's questions, because time permits, to ask Gianluca Colombo about his incredible nerve and courage to tackle a Pinot Nero. And this question, I can hardly wait to hear the answer.
With all due respect, it explains why he doesn't have long hair.
Not anymore, unfortunately.
Pinot Noir will do that.
So Pinot Noir. First question is, every time I have to work with the grape variety, the first question I have to do is, who are you? So every time you have to work with a different grape variety, you cannot take, I don't know, the color in a Nebbiolo-based wine, in a Grignolino that I love, because there's no color. Or you cannot looking for some kind of flavors in a wine, there's no flavors. As, for example, Barbera. Genetically, Barbera has no varietal flavors, and so on. We can talk about it for 2 days if we want to. But Pinot Noir. I think that Pinot Noir is the most important wine. I don't have a lovely son and a bad son, because all of my wines are really important. But my suggestion to all of the wine producers in the world is to plant 3-4 rows of Pinot Noir. Because every time you feel you are the best in the world, you are fantastic, you are doing the best wines in the world, and everybody are happy and you are successful, when you have to work with Pinot Noir, you understand that you do not understand anything. And this is my opinion, because I started in 11. My first vintage of Pinot Noir was awarded in the top Italian Pinot Noir in Südtirol. I'm the only one in the story of Piedmont that gained some award in Südtirol, in Alto Adige. But if you ask me today if I know how to make a good Pinot Noir, my answer is no, I don't know. Because every vintage, the wine is different. Every vintage in the vineyards, it's very hard. If you go in the vineyard with the flu, the Pinot Noir take the flu. It can take all the problem possible. It's very hard to manage. But first of all, the biggest problem we have in Italy when we plant the Pinot Noir is that we don't plant Pinot Noir where Pinot Noir wants to be planted.
Grow, yeah.
For sure, you can ask me, Gianluca, won't you produce a Pinot Noir like Burgundy style? No, because I will never make a Pinot Noir like in Burgundy. It's impossible. The terroir is different, and the territory and the weather is different. So I can't make the Pinot Noir like in Burgundy. I make the best Pinot Noir that I like to drink. And if you like it, I'm happy, because the production is really limited. So this is not a big problem. I don't have to feed all the Chinese market or the USA market with my Pinot Noir. And it makes you, no, this is really important, because when you make a small production, You are much more free of doing what you like and not what you have to. This is a big problem. With the Pinot Noir, now I manage 3 vineyards, different altitude, but with two key points that must be clear always. Exposition. I had to check where I am. I'm in Barolo area, so only north-faced vineyard. You can say north. Yes, north is the only exposition for a Pinot Noir production in my zone. Otherwise, you will have a good red wine that doesn't have any hints of Pinot Noir because you will burn the grapes. Second question is, if I am a Pinot Noir, where I would like to be planted? So I need a high concentration of limestone.
Yeah. Well, you have it.
I think, yes. Otherwise, don't plant a Pinot Noir. So I think I am not the first one in the world that say that the greatest area on the wine world are always area with high content of limestone. Limestone means possibility of making outstanding wines. This it works in Bordeaux, it works in Burgundy, it works in Barolo, it works in many other wine areas in the world.
But in US, we don't have any.
Excuse me? Sorry, I did not understand. I'm still working in my Italian, so I apologize for my English.
I'm just making a joke. I said not in US because we don't have any.
But you play another game, so it works. And you don't need to export your wine, so you are okay. Then if you ask me for a recipe, for example, I still don't know what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. So I can't tell you the process of aging or vinification of my Pinot Noir 2021, because the 2020 was completely different than the 19, and the 19 was totally different than the 18. Why? Because as an artisan winemaker, I have to listen to my grapes and understand and try to interpret. As I told you, the key point of my winery is to bring in the glass what nature gave me. So you have to feel the vineyards, you have to feel the grape variety and the vintage. That's it. So, for example, the 18 Pinot Noir had a submerged cap like a Nebbiolo, 1 vineyard, because all the vineyards are vinified and harvested separately. And the 19 and the 20, just 2 days each. So that's it. So
okay.
no recipe.
Before you go away, Gianluca,
yeah.
Eric Degerman, our wonderful opinion leader from Washington, says he wants to know he wants to know which clone of Pinot Nero.
Okay, the clones. I do prefer the French clones, and the clones that I do prefer are 777 and 115.
We know those clones. Thank you. Okay, great. So our final investigation here, I'm going to turn our attention to Réva, to the Nebbiolo d'Alba, which I have in my glass here. And I would like to ask Daniele to tell us a little bit about this Nebbiolo d'Alba, because we're not in the Comune here. So
yeah, so before to talk about the wine, it's important to talk about 2 specific things about this wine. The first is the decision to produce a Nebbiolo d'Alba and not Langhe Nebbiolo. That are 2 very similar denominations. In reality, just looking at the name of the denomination show you different character. Nebbiolo d'Alba is a very specific area, very small, not included. So the vineyard of Nebbiolo d'Alba are a vineyard dedicated to the Nebbiolo d'Alba. So you cannot to declass Barolo, Barbaresco or other wines, but you need to produce and declare Nebbiolo d'Alba from the beginning. And is 100% Nebbiolo grape. Langhe Nebbiolo denomination is an area bigger in terms of sites, and the discipline give you the possibility also to add until 15% of other varieties red produced in the area. So this is the first thing. And we decided to work in this way because we really would like to have in our wine the purity of the Nebbiolo variety. The second thing is the character of the wine. You know, on the market, you can find many different approach to the Nebbiolo, Langhe Nebbiolo or Nebbiolo d'Alba. We work this wine starting from the end. It means that the most difficult thing back to this wine is have clean in your mind what we are searching. And for us, it's not a baby Barolo, it's not a Barolo young, but it's really a Nebbiolo wine. So that can show to the customer the real character of the Nebbiolo grape, what you feel when you crush with your hand during the harvest the grape. It means that to arrive at this result, we plan the vinification and also the management of the vineyard to arrive at this kind of wine. More approachable, more elegant. Maybe you can see the color that is light, but we don't care about the color. We talk about drinkability, and we talk about pleasure in drinkability. And the management of the vineyard is different. You cannot manage the vineyard of Nebbiolo d'Alba the same of the vineyards of Nebbiolo that you use for the production of Barolo, because the character you want in the wine in terms of tannins, in terms of alcohol also have to be different. Here we are not searching body, here we are searching balance and elegance. So it means that we work the vineyards to have a very good concentration of the flavors in the grapes. We pick up the grapes earlier, sometimes also 1 week before the Nebbiolo da Barolo.
Lower potential, yeah.
Yeah, the temperature that we use for the fermentation of the wine is never too high. It means 23, 24 degrees. In steel, the fermentation is made in steel to better save these flavors, this typical character of the grape. And then we use a very, very soft kind of oak. We use oak from Austria, with very soft toasting for the minimum as possible, so 9 months, and then we bottle in the wine. We are searching to go in the bottles earlier as possible, and then give the wine the possibility to stay a little bit more time in the bottles and not in the wood, to don't lose this special character of the grape. So if for other wines we search always the pleasure in drinkability, but also some character, some body more evident, for this kind of Nebbiolo, we really search the pleasure to drink.
And it's evident in the glass because the floral aromas and the volatile aroma compounds of this wine are undeniable. It's smelling, the whole room smells of this wine because of the aromas. So it's so much great pleasure to be introduced to some of these wines that we don't encounter on a daily basis in our lives, even as wine writers. So I know that our time has gone by now, like so fast. So I want to open the floor to any final brief comments before we say goodbye. If there aren't any, we'll close.
Thank you, everyone.
Last call.
Grazie mille.
I'm going to say this. People from Piedmont traditionally consider themselves very humble. They say Piedmont is a little bit closed in. It takes to get to know them. Well, they've defied that stereotype. And I really appreciate the openness and the beautiful wines and the great exchange of thoughts and ideas and presentations to each and every one of the producers.
Thank you.
And great job, Deborah.
Well said, Lars. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Julia, Deborah.
Thank you very
Nice to
much
see you all.
to everybody. So I just close saying that all opinion leaders here are invited, officially invited by us in Piemonte. So please come. Some of you have been invited already yesterday, so you won't come twice, but one is
2 trips.
So, and thank you for all producers. It has been a really specific to the goal that we have as a consortium to show not only Barolo region, which is of course amazing, but also the other part of Piemonte, and putting together all these producers from different areas and doing such a great moment all together shared. I think it's really great. So thank you, Deborah, for allowing us to do this. Thank you.